What is it? I mean, it has to be a lot of responsibility to try to give people advice and try to straighten their life out and show them the flaws and the errors that they're making.
Yeah, it is. People ask me sometimes, they say, Dr. Field, do you think problems are as simple as you make them out to be? And the truth is, I don't think problems are simple at all. In fact, I think problems are really, most of the time, pretty complex. They're pretty layered. They have a lot of different origins, and they're oftentimes comorbid. A lot of things exist together. So I don't think problems are simple at all. But the solutions are often simple, don't you think? I mean, it's kind of like the old joke. You go to the doctor and you say, this hurts. And he says, well, then don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's very simple in that somebody will have a complex thing that comes from childhood, or maybe it's a drug background, or they've had trauma in their life. But the solution is change your behavior. I mean, stop rewarding bad behavior. Choose a different path in life. Just behave your way to success. Sometimes the solutions are very simple, even though the problems are very complex, because at some point you have to stop focusing on why and start focusing on what. Instead of why it happened, what am I going to do to change it? So sometimes the solutions are pretty simple.
But implementing those solutions are often it's often very difficult for people to change their lives, change their patterns.
It is, and patterns is the key. Nobody does anything in pattern if they don't get a payoff. And if you can identify, that's why insight's so important. That's why I think it's the number one outcome to whether somebody's going to respond to a talking therapy, for example. If somebody can identify what their payoff is, where they really can figure out, I'm doing this repeatedly, and my payoff is I don't have to work, or I don't get held accountable for this, or I'm escaping accountability over here, or I get attention or sympathy, or if they can figure out what their payoff is, and they can then control that, whether it's for themselves or their kids or whatever. If you control the currency, then you can control the behavior.
Yeah, it just seems that people have they have this comfort in their patterns. And even if their patterns are self-destructive, even if it's drug abuse or alcoholism, or the comfort in those patterns, falling into those patterns, it seems very compelling to a lot of people.
Yeah, and payoffs don't necessarily mean that it's a positive payoff.
Right.
I mean, a payoff for taking heroin is you get high, and so you're high for a while. That's not a positive payoff, but it's a payoff.
Right.
And if you get high and so you don't get a job and you don't take care of your kids, that's a payoff that you're not doing things that you need to do that you should be accountable for. It's a pathological payoff, but it's a payoff nonetheless. And so that does reward you, even though it's a pathological payoff, it's a pathological thing. You call it a reward. And if you can identify that, where they say, look, I'm not doing what I need to do, and I need to stop rewarding myself in that way and hold myself accountable. I need to be there for my kid. I tell my kid I'm going to be there every day, and I don't show up because I'm high on drugs, then I need to stop doing it. I need to not let myself get away with that, and instead require myself to show up for the kid when I say I will, and then you see what's in the kid's eyes, you share the experience with them. Now that becomes your payoff, so then you'll start showing up for your kid.
Yeah. How many people take your advice? How many people just listened and try for a little bit and then bail?
It's hard to say, because I think sometimes our most productive guests are the ones that don't get it, because the mail we get, they'll say, oh, wow, that guy didn't get it or that woman didn't get it, but I saw myself in them, and I'll never say that again. I saw them being such a right fighter, or I saw them being so hard-headed or so oppositional, and I heard them say things I've said, and they left and didn't get it. I got it. I'll never do that again. So sometimes those that don't get it at all while they're there are the ones that are the best teaching tools for the millions of people that are at home watching.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? When you watch people fail and you go, oh, okay, I see that in myself.
Yeah.
I just got to not do what that guy's doing. And then also you see the stubborn pig-headedness that some people have where they won't listen to advice. And you could clearly see how they're ruining their lives by not being honest.
Yeah, and sometimes the story that we might have is maybe extreme where you say, I don't do all 6 things they're doing, but I do 2 of them, and they are in sharp relief to me. So I get that. I ain't going to do that anymore. So, I mean, that's where I think you get a payoff. And, you know, people go and find these things on the internet. I mean, last year, you know, we have a channel where we put up, you know, different clips from divorce shows or parenting shows or whatever, and we had over 2 billion views, you know, last year of people just going and finding that information and looking at it. So I know people are seeking the information out and looking at it beyond the show itself. So, you know, they must be seeking information, and we just don't have a good distribution system for mental health in America. So I think I think they're hungry for it and they look for it.
Well, there's so many people out there that are trying to do better. They're trying to get their lives in order. And, you know, shows like yours and, you know, just advice shows, people that are giving out inspiration and knowledge. It's such an important thing for people, especially for people that didn't grow up with wise parents or maybe a good support system around them.
You know, I think that's true. And, you know, I grew up with a alcoholic father. And it was a pretty violent home, and he was a really bad alcoholic. And I know, having grown up in that, you wind up with what I call a damaged personal truth. And you feel second class. And the problem that kids make, and because I know I did it, and I see others do it, is you compare your personal truth, what you know about yourself and, you know, how you really live and what's really going on. You compare your personal truth to everybody else's social mask. Because you go to school and you know, well, I know that last night the windows got kicked out of my house. I know that the utilities got turned off, and I know there was a big fight in my kitchen last night. And the kid sitting next to me, he's got on a shirt that's all ironed, and his face is all bright and clean, and, you know, he looks like he's just got it all together. And you compare yourself to that person, that kid, and you feel like you're second class. And the problem with that is we generate the results in life we think we deserve. So if you think you're damaged, you think you're second class, you will generate results that you think a second-class person deserves. So if you don't fix your personal truth, then you'll spend the rest of your life saying, well, you know, those really good results, those belong for somebody else. That's not for me. That's for somebody else. And you'll settle for second best, and you won't get what you might otherwise generate for yourself if you don't fix your personal truth. And so I think a lot of people are struggling, looking for a way to kind of get out of feeling not good about themselves and damaged self-esteem, damaged self-worth, and they really don't know where to go. So, and that's why I do the show. I'm not under the misapprehension that we're doing 8-minute cures up there. I mean, come on. We're not doing that. But I think if you can point people in the right direction, if you can raise their awareness, you can get them thinking about it, you can create a narrative where they at least say, you know, how do I feel about myself? I mean, is there stuff I need to resolve? I mean, what am I saying to myself? If you can get them thinking about that, then, you know, maybe you've done something.
Yeah, you know, Tony Robbins once said that it's incremental changes over the long haul, and the way you have to look at it is if these 2 boats are going in a parallel direction and one of them just shifts 5 degrees over the course of time, this boat is going to be in a far different place than the other boat that's going the same way it was always going.
Yeah, and the important thing to realize as well is the next year is going to go by whether you're doing something about your life or not. I mean, we're sitting here right now at the end of February, and the next 10 months are going to go by whether somebody is working to make change or whether they're not. And they may think, you know, oh my God, I'm so far overweight, I'll never get it under control, or I'm so behind in my bills, or I'm so just depressed, or everything is so out of control. Well, you know what? You make those incremental changes, and then, pretty soon in December you go, hey, I'm way better off than I was at the end of February. So you made little changes, and they all added up. And if you don't, by the end of the year, you're just in deeper. So every little bit matters.
Yeah, I tell people to write things down. I say one of the best ways to get things done is to write things down. Write down what you're trying to get done. Write down what you need to get done on a long-term basis and what you need to get done on a short-term basis. And write off a checklist. Force yourself. Be accountable.
Yeah, the difference between a dream and a goal is a timeline and accountability.
Yeah, accountability is gigantic.
You got to have somebody, whether it's yourself or a friend or somebody, that's going to say, look, did you do what you said you were going to do by this time? And if you don't, hold your feet to the fire. Because, just sitting around dreaming someday, someday I'm going to get a different job. Someday I'm going to change this. Well, someday ain't a day of the week. There's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Look on your calendar. Some days not on there. So you got to say, okay, I want to take this small step by here, this small step by there, this small step by there. And then pretty soon, we don't leap tall buildings in a single bound. We take it a floor at a time.